We're joined right now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline with NBC Sports Radio's Major League Baseball insider Seth Everett here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN, NBC Sports Radio, the 24/7 live sports talk network. You can listen at NBCSportsRadio.com. Well, we had a nice week here. The Phillies getting ready to play the Nationals, but, man, getting through this stretch, they had the Nationals and the Yankees and now the Nationals. And then, Seth, things are going to lighten up for this team. It should make for an interesting summer here.
Yeah, I know. I saw a lot on Twitter about, the Yankees, and I thought it was important that they got that last game. But, I don't think I'm speaking out of school by saying that the three top teams in baseball are all in the American League. And that, it being the best in the National League is not – it's just a different thing. And, I hate interleague. I hate the matchups. I hate everything about it. It bugs me to no end. I would rather, and I say this to you as a friend, I would rather get rid of the American and National League, do a complete radical realignment, rather than have the Yankees play the Phillies in an interleague match. Because I think it's cheap, and I think it's not a rivalry. There's no rival there.
Yeah.
But the Yankees showed, that they are a superior team. They've got the Red Sox this weekend, and I think for the Phillies to get out of there with just 2 out of 3, I thought, they held their own. And I wouldn't read too much into that kind of series. I think the Yankees are playing real well.
Well, more so, though, the way the Phillies match up with the Nationals should be more of interest. They played them over the weekend. They'll play them again here. They beat them 2 out of 3 down in Washington. Was that more of a telling weekend for the Phillies, that they are here for the long haul?
Well, there's an interesting debate going on because and it applies to all 3 divisions in the National League, and that is, there is a prohibitive favorite. We know who that was on opening day, but there's no secret that the contenders are here. The Brewers are in first place by 2.5 games. And for the Phillies right now, what it has to be is it's just a belief that they're in this for a dogfight and that these head-to-head matchups are big. I'll give you a perfect example. The Brewers, who are another team that's trying to prove that they belong, they played the Phillies, and if you remember, they won 2 out of 3 in Philly, but then lost 2 out of 3 at home.
Right.
The Phillies don't want to lay off the gas against the Nationals. Don't split those series. Take 2 out of 3 again this weekend, and make sure that you put that to the Nationals and make them have to earn it. Because if you put a gun in my head and said, "All right, who's going to be the division champion by the end of September?" I'm going to say Washington. I don't get any pleasure in saying that,
right?
But it's going to have to be an uphill battle. And, the fact that the Braves are there as well, I think these head-to-head matchups are important. And like I said, there's a really good chance I'm going on Sunday. And I hope that the Phillies just have a great crowd and a great buzz and a great atmosphere.
The Phillies, by the way, 6 out of 10. Washington is lost 7 out of 10 here, so the Phillies playing a little bit better ball than the Nationals. I agree with you, Seth. These games now that we start to get around the All-Star break inside the division, they will matter when we come to September. I was talking to Dave Sheehan from the Washington Post the other day. I don't know if you saw his article about tanking in baseball. And I look in the American League, and I look at a lot of haves and have-nots. The National League a little bit more competitive, but do you subscribe to that notion that there's a lot of teams that are just disinterested in winning, or are there just bad teams?
No, there's bad teams, and I think there's a serious competitive balance issue. I think that when you look at the standings, there are 5 teams on pace to lose 100 games, and that would be a record. The record is 4. And I just don't think that's a good record for the sport. I don't think that's a good thing for the league to have. Because of that fact, because you have so many bad teams, and because you have, 3 teams that already have 50 losses, when you have all that, you know that there's a competitive balance issue. 10 years ago, I used to do this thing. When I worked for the league, I used to do this thing where we would circle every game. There were 15 games on a night. And I could find 11 games that I could make the argument had some playoff relevance. And this is with the 1 wild card. So this didn't even have the second wild card. And you could find that. And that was the thing where on like August 15th or even September 1st, there were literally 20 out of 30 teams that still had a shot. And you're not going to have anything close to that this year. And that's to me a big, big problem, because what baseball sells, and I'll speak from a positive standpoint. This isn't about the strikeouts. And, you're starting to see more and more articles about this. You're starting to see a lot of articles about attendance. It's starting to get a groundswell, stuff that we've been talking about, you and I, for a while. But what baseball sells the best is drama. And as much as they annoy me to no end, Yankees-Red Sox is going to provide some drama this weekend. Nobody sells the drama better than baseball. If you'll allow me to take a shot, though, ESPN sent out a press release signifying that it is Alex Rodriguez's first time calling a Yankees-Red Sox game. I would love to know the intern that got that assignment and said, all right, Microsoft Word, here, click open, let's write this. Like, what? Are you serious?
Right.
That's something that has any impact whatsoever? Come on.
Good point. So do you subscribe to what he's saying, that tanking is ruining baseball? Because I asked him where does he think it started, and he said, well, I would go back to the Nationals. They lost 100 games 2 years in a row because they knew Strasburg and Harper were two guys they had a chance to get, and then you saw the Cubs, and then you saw the Astros. Do you subscribe to that?
No, I think it's a little hard to sell. I think there's just bad teams. I think the Orioles aren't tanking. The Texas Rangers
by the way,
aren't tanking.
He did agree that the Orioles aren't tanking, that they actually tried. They're just really bad.
Yeah, but they're really bad, and that's the thing. I mean, being really bad is really bad. And, the teams that bug me are the teams that, they think that they're, like Detroit and the White Sox. These are teams that, they'll talk a big game in spring training, and then they'll come out with absolutely nothing. Acknowledge when you're bad and acknowledge that you're a bad team. I just think that there's no fine line. There's very little mediocrity in the sport. You are either in the race or you stink.
Yeah, and that makes for not compelling. I mean, you mentioned the American League, the three best teams are over there. Every race is essentially done.
Essentially done. And that's why the Yankees-Red Sox, I can't be a baseball insider and not say that's a big series, even though at 10:30 at night on Sunday when they're in the fourth inning, I'll definitely not be tuning in. And I'll definitely have the sound off.
Well, it's nice it's nice if you want to win a division and not have to play in that wild card matchup. I get the East has something going on.
But that's the beauty of the second wild card, because the existence of that game. You do not want to have a season where you're going to win 95 to 100 games, come down to a one-game playoff when all you have to do is win these head-to-head games. Because I will argue that the winner of the head-to-head series between the Yankees and Red Sox in the 18 or 19 games that they play, that will decide the American League wild card.
We'll leave it with this with Seth Everett here as the Phillies, by the way, take on the Nationals this weekend. A lot of people talk about this Arrieta deal. He's not pitched very well. Do you think in hindsight, I mean, it's only halfway through the first season of it, that maybe the Phillies might regret making that signing?
When you talk about regretting a signing, my attitude has been, are you winning at the time? And if you're winning, I don't think that's too much of an issue. I understand this idea. Here's my argument. There's been all this talk about Manny Machado and Bryce Harper. Mm-hmm. And, you talk about guys after that. The reality of it is that you're starting to see a change in the philosophy. And I think that, especially from a pitching standpoint, I think there's going to be a lot less big free agent signings and a lot less money being spent because of teams like Tampa. If you look at what Tampa's doing, they don't even call their starting pitchers starters anymore.
Yeah,
they call them openers.
Yep.
The openers. I mean, they're trying to change the way everybody does it. And, I don't know that there's going to be a copycat for that. But, man, if I'm Clayton Kershaw, that's a dying breed. Like, I don't think there's a huge market for Jacob deGrom because the Mets are asking for the moon, and all these other teams are saying, wait a second, we can cultivate our own system. We don't need Jacob deGrom. That's a change in the philosophy.
No doubt. And it's something we could dive into a little deeper because that would be a huge shift in the way baseball is operating. Seth Everett, NBC Sports Radio, the 24/7 live sports talk network. Listen at NBCSportsRadio.com. Download the NBC Sports Radio mobile app today. Seth, have a great weekend, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, buddy.